Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Heap and I represent Geoscience Australia, which is Australia's national geoscience public sector organisation. We focus our work on 6 impact areas where we can apply our breadth of scientific expertise to Australia's most important challenges. Today, I want to give you an update on the Australian Government's Exploring for the Future program, which applies to 3 of the 6 impact areas: building Australia's resources wealth, securing Australia's water resources, and enabling an informed Australia. The Exploring for the Future program has been an enormous undertaking, which has to date covered 39% of Australia's landmass. And I want to acknowledge and thank everyone that has supported us in the first phase of the program. Geoscience Australia also acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country where this work was undertaken and where we meet today. I also thank the many individuals and communities across remote and rural areas of Australia that have helped us access this country. And finally, I thank our state and territory colleagues for their vital collaborations and contributions that have made this program such a success. In today's talk, I will provide an overview of the key results and outcomes from Phase 1 of the Exploring for the Future program, show you where to access and assess the data, and provide an update on the recently announced extension and expansion of the program. But first, let me set the scene with a quick overview of Australia's resources sector and the rationale behind the Exploring for the Future program. Australia is known as a mining nation, so it is not surprising that the resources and energy sectors are major components to our economy. And our resources also make an important contribution to the economies of our trading partners. Last financial year, the mining sector accounted for 9% of Australia's GDP, while minerals and energy exports amounted to 290 billion Australian dollars, or 61% of our total goods and services exports. A key challenge for Australia is that much of our current resource prosperity is based on discoveries and developments from several decades ago in geologically well-known and relatively well-explored areas. This graph is for worldwide mineral discoveries since 1975, but the same trend applies in Australia. It shows that Tier 1 discoveries have become rarer in recent decades, with only 4 discoveries in Australia falling into this category since 2009. In fact, over 80% of Australia's current mineral production is derived from mines discovered prior to 1980, largely in areas where the resources are relatively close to the surface. Apart from the recent development of coal seam gas, it's a similar story for the Australian energy sector. So, for a world looking to mineral and energy resources to drive a transition to low-emission energy sources and high-tech communications and manufacturing, this is a major challenge. Clearly, we need to be doing something different regarding exploration to drive these new discoveries, particularly discoveries of new Tier 1 deposits. This challenge is recognised by the Australian Government, which released a National Resources Statement in 2019. It sets out policy and the long-term agenda, articulating a vision of Australia having the world's most advanced, innovative and successful resources sector that delivers sustained prosperity and development. The 5 points on this slide are the Australian Government's long-term strategic goals and, despite the economic upheavals of the COVID-19 pandemic, implementing the statement remains a priority. Which brings us to the Exploring for the Future program, which is providing new pre-competitive data and information in underexplored parts of the country to encourage new exploration investment and potentially new mineral, energy and groundwater discoveries. The program commenced in 2016 with a $100.5 million investment from the Australian Government, and in June this year it was extended for another 4 years with a further $124.5 million in funding. It is one of the most important and ambitious Australian geoscience initiatives in recent years. So let me show you a taste of some of the significant outcomes and groundbreaking discoveries that have been achieved to date, starting with some of the pre-competitive geoscience data that we have collected to improve our understanding of our mineral, energy and groundwater resources. Geoscience Australia led the first phase of this large and complex program in collaboration with our partners from the Geological Surveys of Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland and the Northern Territory. Phase 1 comprised 21 collaborative activities that mapped more than 3 million square kilometres, or 39% of Australia's landmass, and shone a light on many parts of the country that have never been properly explored. At the continental scale, activities included collecting airborne electromagnetic data across approximately 2 million square kilometres of northern Australia. This is the largest survey of its kind anywhere in the world, and it provided significant new insights into the location of groundwater resources and especially cover thickness for mineral and energy resources. It is important to remember that conservative estimates suggest that only 20% of the continent has been well explored, while the remaining 80% is still to give up its secrets. We have also used satellite images from the 1980s to the present day to produce a time series of Australian soil and bedrock. The signatures from these new bare earth images can be used to map the surface mineralogy. These datasets are then used in machine learning applications for predictive mapping of the mineralogy across the continent. The power of mapping at various depths, for example down to 200 kilometres at the base of the tectonic plate, is illustrated here. National data have revealed important and potentially transformational insights into the first-order geological controls on major mineral deposits in Australia. On the left is a high-resolution map of the thickness of the Australian plate, determined from seismic tomography. Thicker areas are in blue and thinner areas are in red. The map also shows that currently known sedimentary-hosted base metal deposits, the bold circles, are all found within 100 kilometres of the 170 kilometre plate thickness contour. This contour coincides with the rapid transition of plate thickness from thick to thin, and large deposits such as Mount Isa, Cannington and Broken Hill all lie on this contour. The map on the right shows a 200 kilometre wide strip of land along the contour that also contains suitable rocks for base metal deposits. This cuts the search space down to just 15% of Australia's landmass. Based on feedback from industry, Geoscience Australia also undertook targeted stratigraphic drilling to augment our pre-competitive programs to encourage exploration in greenfield areas. In collaboration with the Geological Survey of Western Australia, we also completed the deepest stratigraphic well in the Canning Basin of Western Australia at 2,680 metres. Analysis is still being undertaken, but initial results from fluid inclusions point to potential petroleum systems, the first identification of petroleum systems in the southern part of the basin. Of course, the program resulted in many other achievements and generated more than 250 datasets. We've also produced many reports, synthesising and summarising the data, and the key results have been published in 62 extended abstracts, available for download from the Exploring for the Future website, shown here on the slide. In fact, it is exactly how you can access the data that I would like to talk about next, by introducing you to our free and innovative online data discovery portal. Geoscience Australia's data discovery portal provides easy access to a multitude of comprehensive geological datasets and tools that help identify prospective areas for mineral discovery. If you are planning exploration drilling, the portal can help answer questions about the thickness of the cover rock or existing drill hole information. If you are planning a new mine site, the portal can help answer questions about water resources, existing infrastructure, or the best place for new infrastructure. One of the most exciting tools in the portal is Economic Fairways. This tool enables you to ask, what mineral tonnages and grades would I need for a profitable mine? This example shows the net present value of a 10 million tonne nickel discovery at 1.5% grade using a combination of depth of cover, metal price, exchange rate and ore body geometry. The resulting heat map shows the blue areas where you are unlikely to make money and the red areas where a discovery could be commercial. The strongest influence on profitability is depth of cover, but interestingly, the heat map also shows the economic effects of state royalties and proximity to infrastructure. Too often in the past, companies have spent millions of dollars drilling only to walk away because the economics didn't stack up. This tool enables some of the pre-feasibility to be done before drilling. Another really interesting tool shifts our use of the data from descriptive to predictive. This is a heat map showing the modelled mineral potential for mineral systems hosting nickel, copper, platinum group element sulfide deposits. Red shows high potential and blue low potential. Chalice Gold's recent Julimar discovery just to the northeast of Perth was based off this map. The company noticed the model was predicting that the western margin of the Yilgarn Craton was prospective for magmatic sulfide systems. This was a catalyst for Chalice to acquire holdings in this region, and so far, their high-grade drilling intersections of nickel and platinum mineralisation have more than justified this decision. It also demonstrates the impact that government-acquired pre-competitive data can have on greenfield exploration. In fact, the results of Phase 1 of the program have led to an exploration rush of sorts in some parts of northern Australia, demonstrating the impact of government-funded data for supporting mineral exploration. On this map, the coloured polygons show some of the tenements recently taken up in the Barkly region of northern Australia as a result of the Exploring for the Future program. What is really pleasing for us is that most of this exploration interest is in the previously unexplored frontier regions. Today, 18 companies have picked up new tenements in key focus areas. 12 companies have publicly attributed their new tenement acquisitions to the Exploring for the Future program. The collective area of exploration tenements on the map is more than 100,000 square kilometres. Our groundwater assessment is already leading to better outcomes for remote communities in the region between Tennant Creek and Alice Springs. Companies have been quick to capitalise on the new information provided by the program. I hope you will agree that the results of the last 4 years of the Exploring for the Future program have been world-class, and Geoscience Australia is excited to be building on this fantastic work through the recently announced $124.5 million 4-year extension and expansion of the program. This initiative is particularly important because it forms part of the Australian Government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Australia, like most of the rest of the world, has been impacted by COVID-19. The governments of Australia have prioritised the health and well-being of Australians and have, so far, been relatively successful at suppressing community transmission of the virus. Of course, our economy has also been affected with different impacts felt across different sectors. In the minerals and energy sectors, many of our enterprises suspended exploration activities for a time to reduce risk to their workforce and local communities. Many have also faced increased difficulty in raising essential capital to meet exploration and holding costs. Despite this, resources production and exploration has remained strong, and the federal, state and Northern Territory governments have worked hard to ensure that the minerals and energy sectors have continued operating during the COVID-19 lockdown, with a range of measures such as land releases, frozen fees and billions of dollars in support for eligible companies across all industry sectors, demonstrating the strong government support for the industry in Australia. This strong government support for the minerals, energy and agricultural sectors meant that the Exploring for the Future program was identified as an area for action in the Australian Government's National Resources Statement that I mentioned earlier in my presentation. It is also identified as an action item under the Government's Critical Mineral Strategy. The extension and expansion of the program means that we will undertake national-scale activities across Southern Australia to complement those in the north during Phase 1. In addition, we will focus on 2 transcontinental corridors, one in the east and one in the west, for regional deep dive studies. The existing geological knowledge of these corridors indicate that both are highly prospective for minerals, including critical minerals, energy resources and groundwater, including areas with significant potential for agriculture. We are currently planning our national and regional studies, which will seek to support economic development for both resources and agriculture and also support resilient communities. We are looking to focus our efforts in cross-jurisdictional, frontier or poorly understood areas where we can provide the greatest impact. As with the first phase of the program, we are planning the acquisition of new pre-competitive data, and the regional studies will seek to holistically improve our understanding of basin architecture, lithology, basement depth, interbasin relationships and groundwater, in addition to energy and mineral resource potential. The Exploring for the Future program also links to other key priority areas that the Australian Government is progressing for the resources sector. In September this year, the Australian Government released the first Low Emissions Technology Statement. The statement outlines the goals of the Australian Government's Technology Investment Roadmap, which sets out Australia's energy priorities as it seeks to bring down carbon emissions over the next 30 years. The Roadmap and the Low Emissions Technology Statement represent the cornerstone of Australia's long-term emissions reduction strategy, with a vision for a prosperous Australia recognised as a global low emissions technology leader. Last year, the Australian Hydrogen Strategy was published. It sets a vision for a clean, innovative, safe and competitive hydrogen industry that benefits all Australians. It aims to position our industry as a major player by 2030. Also in 2019, the Australian Government published its Critical Mineral Strategy, and Geoscience Australia is helping to implement many of the actions set out in the document under the leadership of the Critical Minerals Facilitation Office. The Exploring for the Future program also has a strong focus on understanding Australia's groundwater resources. This will help unlock agricultural opportunities in regional areas and will support initiatives such as the National Farmers Federation 2030 Roadmap for the agricultural sector. The roadmap recognises the unique role agriculture plays in Australian society and sets out a vision to exceed $100 billion in the farm gate output by 2030. The data and geoscience knowledge gained from the Exploring for the Future program over the 8 years of its life will help progress all of these strategies and enable robust decision-making for governments, companies and private investors. Well, that brings me to the end of my presentation today. If I can leave you with one key message, it is this: Australia is the world's best destination for minerals, energy and groundwater exploration, discovery and investment, with all levels of government actively supporting the sustainable growth of our resources sector through the world-class, cutting-edge programs such as Exploring for the Future. Thank you for your time today, and I invite you to visit the Geoscience Australia virtual booth for more information.